welcome to the show. Hi, Jason. Hi, Rick.
Hi, welcome.
Hello. 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 Thanks for having us.
Of course. Before we start out, we always ask our whoever we interview to tell us funny story, but it's end up, being not so funny. So can you entertain our audience with interesting story?
I think you're referring to like a disaster story regarding multifamily real estate, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I was trying to think about this before we started the show. The one thing that comes to mind was actually during our inspection phase when we bought our 54 unit. I think I was inspecting the mechanical rooms, and I call it the boiler room telemarketing sales guy. So we walked in, and think of a boiler room, dark,
Mhm.
dingy, hot, right? And we seen this guy like poke his head out, and we're like, "Is someone in here?" Like, it was kind of weird. I was with my maintenance guy, and all of a sudden, the guy's like, he gives us the finger. He holds up the finger like, 1 second, I'm on the phone. He's got like a headset on, and we walk in this boiler room, and he's got literally screens set up. He's got earphones. He's got his lunch warming up on the boiler, like keeping it hot. Like, he had set up shop, and he's not wearing a shirt. That's an important part of this because it
Wow.
was so hot in the boiler room. And he's like on the phone with someone. He's giving us the finger. He was selling earpieces,
Mhm.
hearing aids.
Very.
So we'd hijacked our boiler room. We didn't own it at the time, but he'd hijacked the boiler room and used it as an office for selling hearing aids.
So he
So
was
that was an interesting.
he was working from his sauna,
Yeah.
and it had a keychain to warm up his lodge, and he was resourceful. Did you hire him?
Probably should have. That was very. If you've seen the movie The Boiler Room, that gives it kind of new meaning.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Jason, quick question. What is your background in real estate? I know you've been doing some, you've been on a journey for a few years. Can you just tell us a little bit of your background?
Sure. Like a 2-minute,
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
quick little run
2
through.
hours. I don't care.
Well, I don't want to put the audience to sleep. I mean, it's a normal, like, it's a typical path, right? Single family homes to multifamily. My path was maybe a little bit faster or different than most. I got out of college, and a relative of mine asked me to come live in this flip that he was doing and renovate it for him and be like labor for him. And he offered to, allow me to work for my rent. So that was like my first house hack.
Mhm.
And it kind of turned on a light switch, like, okay, there's some money in this, right? And then from there, I started buying my own live-in flips, and I'd live in them for whatever, 6 months or a year. The last one I did with my wife and we lived there for 7 years. It's not really a flip after 7 years, but it kind of was. So, but at some point I got kind of serious, and I started an LLC and bought a rental
Mhm.
in Inkster, Michigan, the third highest murder capita of the country. So if you're going to be a first time landlord or, you know, investor, don't do that.
Mhm.
So I remember cutting the grass with a Glock strapped to my hip at
Whoa.
one point. So, yeah, just that was a very interesting way to cut my teeth in real
Hmm.
estate. So, I mean, after that, I was I was a technical sales
Mhm.
guy in a W-2 career, and did that for, I mean, really up until recently, up until a couple years ago. So while I was doing my W-2, I was moonlighting nights and weekends, buying houses, fixing them, selling them, renting them, whatever it was. I can't remember when it was. I really got serious. It was probably 2017, and I'd just gotten fired from a job or whatever, and just decided, hey, there's got to be something better. There's got to be something more.
Mhm.
I'm tired of being someone. I was tired of someone else dictating the fate of my family and my financial future in my life. Is what it really boiled down to. I didn't like someone else having that
Mhm.
control. I got fired from a job because a equity firm bought a company, and I was a number on a piece of paper for somebody. And some guy in New York fired me and changed my life and the path of my world. with a stroke of a pen.
Mm.
That a guy that didn't even know me, right? And at that point, I was like, there's got to be something else, right? And for me, real estate seemed like it. It seemed like I could control it. I could make it worth more and all that kind of stuff. So at that point, I started burring houses. And for the listeners that don't really know what the BRRRR method is, it's buy, renovate, refinance, rent, and repeat.
Mhm.
And I did that a couple times, 2 times actually, and realized that was too slow. And listened to the guys on Bigger Pockets, like Jake and
Mhm.
Gino, Joe Fairless, Bruce Peterson. And those guys all said the same thing. Go as fast as you could possibly go as big as you safely can go, as soon as you can go, that size. So, and they all did it with multifamily. So I said, well, if it's good enough for them, it certainly is good enough for me buying a couple of, BRRRRs. And at that point, I kind of just gobbled up everything I could get my hands on: podcasts,
Mhm.
books. I joined courses. I flew to events, stuff like that, and just did all this moonlighting as, while I had my W-2 job, learned how to syndicate, and then found my deal when I flipped the house. It was my deal actually that I own now was across the street from one of my flips.
Before we go
And
to the deal that you have today, 2017,
yeah,
that's when you got fired from that job. That stung, but then that also woke you up. You were like, okay, I need to take matters into my hands because I am responsible for my family and for myself. So how long did it take for you to start educating yourself? Did you find another job and then committed yourself to educating yourself into the bigger idea?
good question. And yes, that's exactly what I did. At that point, I think it was still I still had W-2 jobs until about a year ago, but I would say, Mina, from when I got the multifamily bug until I actually closed on my deal was probably about 2 years.
Mhm.
So there was an intense year and a half of studying. And I remember many Saturdays with Joe Fairless's best ever
Mhm.
syndication book on my desk. And it looks like the Bible. It's all marked and highlighted and, paged up. And so I think that it was probably a couple
Mm.
years,
For
you
the
know.
listeners, it takes time. Be
Mhm.
patient with yourself. Sometimes you look back and you're like, man, I've been doing this for a couple of years and I got nothing to show for. But yes, you do. You are not where you were a couple years ago. Go ahead, Ricky.
I want to hear from Rick. What's your story regarding the path to multifamily?
So I'm here for support for Jason.
Okay.
I'm an
Okay.
investor. My role has been more passive in this deal. Just a quick thing about my background. I did have my background is very close to Jason. We've known each other for over 20 years. And when I invested in this particular property, I really invested in Jason.
Mhm.
I really didn't care about the property. I just knew him. I trusted him. And that's who I invested in. So I want to start by saying that is if you're an investor, I would say make sure you're investing in that person that's
Mhm.
taking on this venture because
Well,
that's going to make or break it.
well, let's talk about that, Rick. What
Yeah.
is it that made you trust Jason? What qualities did you see?
So the qualities that made me trust him is that I know he is somebody who would not screw you over for a penny or a dollar. And
Mhm.
I've known him. We started our friendship through work. That's how it started initially. And most of my long-term friendships started from some source of business through our W-2s. And
Mhm.
that's really what initiated the friendship. And as we got to know each other, yeah, listen, him and I are very different, but our core values are the same.
Mhm.
And that's when it comes down to, we're both men of faith. We both have core values that are same, and all the other things I can overlook. And he overlooks it in me because trust me when I tell you, we're both not perfect. But I would
Okay.
implore people to invest in the person if you're going to be an investor.
I want to take that a little bit farther. So, how did you start investing? Was that IRA, sell direct IRA, or was it cash?
For me, my loose money that I had available was in traditional IRAs.
Okay.
Jason and I have been talking. So our path was a little similar. We both started doing some single family stuff. I did single family back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Jason. The path to this is through multifamily. It's good to cut your teeth on single family, maybe duplexes, and evolve that to something else. Jason and I always talk about multifamily, and I encouraged him the whole time. I just have that much confidence in him. He actually got me connected to understanding self-directed IRAs. So
Okay.
that answers your question pretty point blank. Self-directed IRAs allows you to take your money, transfer from a traditional IRA
Mhm.
into this self-directed. And then from there, you can use that money to invest in a syndication deal like multifamily.
Wow.
I guess that is taking us back into the big deal that you invested with Jason. So, Jason, how did you find that deal?
I took my wife out to dinner.
Oh,
So I was flipping this house across the street from the apartment complex we have now is called Cascade Falls. It's in Jackson, near the falls, near golf courses, and it's in a beautiful neighborhood. So when you flip a single family house, right, the textbook, ladies, you know this, you buy the worst house in the best
Mhm.
neighborhood, right? So there was mansions across the street from this, but I kept seeing traffic go in, and I, was like, what's back there? So I go back there, and there's this 54 unit with porches and falling off
Mhm.
and paint peeling, and somebody that didn't want to own that building, right? So it was like a God moment for me. And I said, I'm going to buy this building. I don't know how, I don't know who owns it. I don't know if it's even for sale, but somehow I'm going to buy this building. I had to sell that flip. So fast forward probably a couple months. It's my wife's birthday. She wants to go out to eat. Jackson, I don't know why. Normally she wants to go to Ann Arbor. And so I took her to Jackson pre-COVID. So there was an hour wait at the steakhouse that she wanted to go to. And I said, if you want to wait, we'll wait. She didn't want to wait. So we went to a different place. We went to Knights in Jackson, and it was less of a wait, 15 minutes. Let's go have a drink at the bar. The bar's packed. There's maybe 2 bar stools, and there's a big guy right in the middle. And I said, well, hon, just sit here. I'll stand behind you. You can sit down. The guy hears us. He moves over, and I thank him, and he's drinking whiskey, wearing a suit. Oh, what do? You strike up a conversation. It turns out this guy is the commercial broker that, knows the owners of the apartment complex that I, vowed to myself that I would buy. So I sat down at a bar next to the broker that brokered the
and I
deal.
think we found
And
the big lesson of this episode is take your wife to the steakhouse.
yeah, take your wife wherever she
Yes.
wants for dinner. Yeah, for sure. So, but the first thing he says to me is, I've been trying to buy that place for 10 years for different clients, and they'll never sell it. They've never even given us a price. And so he broke my heart. I was like, oh. So I convinced him to have breakfast with me a couple weeks later, and I convinced him to try it one more time, just my way. I wrote a purchase agreement. I had a lawyer draft it, and we lobbed that over the fence. And for the first time ever, they countered.
Wow.
It was twice as much as what I offered them, but they still countered. So we had something to work with. And it took a very long time to get that deal closed, 8 months or 9 months, I think, because it was a mom and pop. He had owned it for 30 years. There was major problems wrong with the building that I uncovered during diligence that I had to retrade him on. But, at the end of the day, we were able to close.
Jason, what was the problem solved? What was the thing that got him over the fence? And what was it that you were at this right time that they were dealing with?
I really don't know. I think it was just timing. And I think that is a good lesson for listeners out there. If you're approaching owners directly, if you're buying lists, it's not really about what can happen that moment. It's really about, the diligence and your persistence and your patience and, having faith. And I don't want to get too hokey here, but really, I believe it was divine intervention. I think the timing was just, I believe in a higher power. It was a God moment that, and really the fact that we closed the deal was a miracle in itself. So there was a lot of things that had to happen. And there was a lot of times during that diligence process and during when we were under contract where the deal fell apart and I couldn't do anything more. I felt like it was just gone. right? We even actually, they refunded my earnest money at one
Wow.
point, and we closed the contract. Like it was squashed at one point. And so, I would pray, hey, I really can't do anything more. Jesus, you're going to have to do something here because I have done everything I can. And if you want me to have this, then you got to do something. And then something would happen.
Hmm.
No idea why, but something
Like
would
what?
happen. An investor would show up, right? The guy that's on this podcast right
Uh-huh.
now, he would show up and he would say, hey, here's a funny story about Rick. He said, I lost my big dog investor $400,000, so the deal was going to fall apart. Right, I didn't have funding for the down payment, so I called Rick. It was 2 weeks. I was depressed. Finally, I called Rick, and I was all bumming. And he's like, "Did you call Nico?" I was like, "Who's Nico?" No, I didn't call Nico. He's like, "Dude, you got to call the people that I give you." And he's like, "Nico might be able to fund this thing." So I called Nico, and Nico's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm in for only 25, but I think I could probably fund your whole deal." I was like, what do you mean you can fund my whole deal? Like, what are you talking about? And he was the one that funded the whole deal, believe it or not. It was just crazy. So you never know what's going to happen. The people, the places, the things that, God will align those, a divine intervention, the universe, but you got to do the work, right? You got to go out there and you got to put yourself out there. You got to, introduce yourself to people, make the phone calls, do the studying, do the homework, and, then God can help you.
There is
I
so
guess.
much in there. There is so much in there, Jason, because you said that there were things falling off the building. So while you were doing your due diligence, you're starting to see, okay, in reality, this is going to cost a lot more than I was expecting, probably. And
Right.
then
And
then
it
there is the
has.
other factor of money. Money is important. You have to have a team to help you take on this deal. And then the support system, in this case, is Rick saying, hey,
Mhm.
make the phone calls, which is really difficult to do because then it's a whole another mindset of, am I begging for money or am I giving people opportunities to grow their money? And that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when Rick was, so how did you decide then when it was, you were going to close and then it was like to invest? Did you have just one investor or how did that work?
Say that again,
You
Mina.
had just one investor or how did that work?
Oh, how is it structured? Okay. Yeah. Well, it's a syndicated deal. I have myself and 8 other investors. I am the general partner, and we have 8 limited partners in the deal. I myself put in, a chunk of cash, probably, I don't know, 10% of the cash. And then the LP investors raised the rest of it. The GP split, GP LP, general partner, limited partner split is 20, 80,
Okay.
20. So the GP being 20% and all the LPs being 80% of the deal.
Wow. Mina, I had an interesting experience the other day. I was showing properties to a family with 2 kids, and we had 10 to see. After viewing about half, the family was getting pretty hungry, and they really just wanted to continue the other day. So what did you do? I went to my car and pulled out a bag of delicious Rickey Jerky. They loved it so much they were able to continue our day without any issues. All the ingredients are 100% natural, plus every strip is seasoned, marinated, and smoked by hand to give you the best experience and slap you back into the gear. But I need to buy some more.
Oh, just head over to rickysjerky.com and use the discount code, the code REI, for 15% off your first order.
So whether you're a busy real estate agent or just looking for mouth-watering snack on the go, Rickey Jerky got you covered. So you talked about this deal, such a difficult deal, and it looked like it's a total disaster deal. Why did you even pursue it? What was about this property that you said, you know what? I want this property.
I think it was just the neighborhood. And I mean, as a flipper, you look for those value adds. Like you want those. It's almost like this apartment complex was a flip, but I didn't get it for a flip price, so to speak. But, I think that's what it was. It was the value add component, and the numbers
Okay.
worked. The pro forma worked. I put together an investor summary, and obviously the bank needs to see that in order to give you the down payment. So you have to do your diligence and know that that's going to work. But at the same time, the economy helped us a little bit. It hurt us and helped us at the same time. So after we closed, we had I had a budget for a $1.2 million renovation. This place needed
Wow.
everything. It needed boilers and sanitary systems, and it needed a roof. It needed, all, the apartments were original 1960s. So they needed kitchens, they needed bathrooms, they needed,
Wow.
everything. So on a $2.2 million purchase, it was a $1.2 million budget. Well, once COVID happened, and you remember what
Mm-hmm.
happened to the cost of plywood, it
Yeah.
quadrupled. I mean, and everything's made out of wood in an apartment complex when you're renovating. So our costs that blew my budget out of the water. The contractors wanted more money. They were harder to find. The materials went through the roof. There was a lot of things that happened that was a disaster, but there was good things that happened too. Being, as you guys all remember, double-digit inflation
Yeah.
on rents over a period of
Mm-hmm.
2 years. Some guys were talking 20% lips over a period of a year. Well, that helped us as well. It blew our pro forma out of the water as far as what we are charging for rent versus what I thought we'd be able to
Mm-hmm.
charge before I bought the place. So
So
all that
now
helps.
the property is stabilized. You guys are just going with it. And what is going on right now, and what is the plans for the future, Jason?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are just, I think I just looked at the numbers just yesterday. We've owned the deal for about 2 years, and I have about 12
Mm-hmm.
apartments left out of 54 to renovate. All the infrastructure is done. The exteriors are done, the landscaping, the parking lot, the roof, the windows. There was 230 windows we had to replace. So all that infrastructure is done. The place looks amazing. It looks like a completely different complex. We're getting a different
Mm-hmm.
tenant base because we're using granite
Yeah.
counters and stainless steel appliances and shaker style cabinets. And we're refinishing the wood floors that were underneath the carpeting. We're doing a lot of things that are more high end finishes. So that's gaining us a better quality tenant. And so we're able to, command a higher rent for that. And really we're providing a lot of
Mm-hmm.
value for the community. We're giving them an apartment complex that previously didn't exist. This type of high end finish for this price didn't and doesn't exist in Jackson. So for me, if the question was, where are my goals from here? My goal has always been 1,000 units in
Okay.
5 years. So now it might shift a little bit. Maybe that's going to take me a little longer, but it's really not about the 1,000 units or the money per se. It's more about what that means. It means opportunities for investors. It means jobs for people. It means being able to pour back into people's lives. We're doing that now at the complex. The amount of contractors and the relationships we have. For instance, one of the contractors, he's been with us for a year and a half, a 1099 contractor. I'm helping him get into his
Mm-hmm.
first house. We're doing it as a flip, but I'm funding it and he's doing all the work and we're partners on it. And it's going to be his first house for his family because he's had a
Mm-hmm.
rough background and he didn't have credit. And he's living with his in-laws and it's just a really bad situation, but he's a great guy and a great worker. And I invested in him and now he's going to have it's been amazing. And now he's going to have a beautiful home to move him and his family into that he'll
Wow.
own. So just things like that make a difference. You can change people's lives with this business, with this multifamily, model, so to speak. And really it's about community and about family, about time with your family and really, the financial freedoms that come with being able to make your own
Mm-hmm.
decisions when you have the independence of being a multifamily investor.
And if
Go
I
ahead.
may ask, just might
Yeah,
as
go
well
ahead.
ask Rick as well. What is your plans for what's going on right now with the multifamily or even the real estate in general in your life? And then what are the plans for the future, Rick?
So let me start with this. There's one thing that Jason missed when he was talking about how he was able to connect him to this property. And I don't remember him bringing this up, but he built a relationship
Mm-hmm.
also with the owner. Am I correct, Jay?
Correct. Yep.
And I personally think that was a big part of it. Once he started connecting with this owner actually liked
Okay.
Jason. It was more than just, oh, I'm selling some guy. He actually knew he ended up getting to know Jason and he liked Jason. So what I want to exclamation point this, that the relationship parts
Mm-hmm.
are really important. Build it with those brokers, but at the same time, if you do happen to get an off market deal and you get to know those owners, get to know them. Don't take it as just like happenstance and, well, he said
Mm-hmm.
no or she said no and I'm done. I wanted to interject
Yeah,
that.
it's never no, it's just
Ever-
not
Yeah,
yet, right?
that's a definitely good
ever-
point.
yes.
So, Jason, you're definitely growing. You're looking for partnership. How can people find you to partner up on your future deals?
I started a website. It's called Three Nails
Mm-hmm.
Capital, threenailscapital.com. That's the number
Yep.
three, NAILS, capital, CAPATIL, threenailscapital.com. And my email is just jvalchine, first initial last name at threenailscapital.com. And it's with a three. And they could even shoot me a text. I always throw it out there. People think I'm crazy for doing it, but they can shoot me a text, 734-548-4091. Or, just give me a call. I'm happy to talk real estate. I don't turn anybody away. I really feel like this is a community
Mm-hmm.
business and, a way to, really give back to everybody that's interested. And people helped me along the way. And like Rick said, those relationships he couldn't have said it better. Like those people buy from people. They invest in people. They give their money to people. They don't necessarily care as much about the
Mm-hmm.
transaction or the deal as they do I like this person? Do I trust this person? Is this person someone that, I would have over for dinner at my house and meet my family? And that's the way it should be, really. That owner, once it was funny because the deal fell apart so many times and the brokers were muddling it up. So when the owner and I got the brokers out of the way and sat down at a
Mm-hmm.
restaurant and actually had a meal together and said, okay, we were both thankful to get the brokers and the lawyers out of the way. If there's any brokers or lawyers listening, I apologize, but that's what it was with my deal, and like we were able to just do business and
Mm-hmm.
sit down and share a meal together and have a conversation. What do you want out of this? What do I want out of this? Like, what are you trying to do? He's trying to invest in his brother's business. He needed some money. So like, it was one of those things where you just got to get to know the person that's on the other end of that transaction, whether it be your contractor, whether it be the broker, whether it be your accountant or the lawyer, whatever it is.
I'm just curious I'm going back into the interview, sorry. But what kind of debt did you
Yeah.
get on that first multifamily?
Again, the relationship with your bank is
Mm-hmm.
extremely important. That's something we didn't touch on, but I developed with my flips a relationship with a community bank, and the community bank was my banker was who funded my deal. What was unique about that loan is I was able to get a line of credit for the entire capital expenditure project, the entire CapEx. My line of credit didn't even really require any lien releases or waiver forms or formal escrows or all that kind of stuff. I would literally call my banker,
Mm-hmm.
my relationship, and say, hey, I need, $200K released for the boiler project. And it would be there that
Wow.
afternoon. It was that easy to fund the project and do the renovations. And that made all the difference. And then when I ran out of money because of COVID and all these budget problems, I went back to him. We refinanced it sort of, and he gave me an extension on the line of credit is what it was with a blended interest rate. So my interest rate is still, I think, at like 4.3. It was like 4.1 when we started, and it's still at 4.3, even with the extra 800K in line of credit that we added. And what that line of credit does is as it gets released, it just gets
Mhm.
rolled right into the mortgage. So under those terms, and the terms we acquired on this deal, they weren't, off the charts great. It was 20-year amortization and 5-year fixed, interest only for 2 years. So that was the main
But
structure of it.
Jason,
If that
you were
answers your
able
question.
to take the rents from where to where with all the value add that you created.
Some of the rents were they were between 600 and 700 when we bought the property. Now we're at between 9 and 1150,
Mhm.
I believe, for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and two bedroom, one and a
Wow.
half bath.
Yeah, you just
So
created value out of your work, and that will compensate for the debt and for all the inflation and everything. I would say it's actually kind of low, but I don't know exactly the neighborhood, and it does varies a lot.
they are a little bit low, but we're still, sometimes we rent an apartment and we're swinging sledgehammers right next to
Yeah.
their head at 8 a.m. So the interesting thing about this deal is I was able to use a more surgical approach with this. So in other words, I only renovate an apartment as it
Mhm.
becomes vacant. So I'm using the attrition method, and really we're about 20 to 25% vacant during all these renovations. So the property is actually cash flowed the entire time. I've given distributions to my investors every quarter, and they've been good distributions, the like 8, 10,
Wow.
12%. And for us to do that with a 25% vacancy has been really kind of amazing in the property throughout the
Yeah.
history of it.
Too bad we
So
lost Rick. I
Yeah.
think he was having internet connection problems. But it's true. He was telling me how well he's done by investing with you.
Yeah.
He said, I made my money through this investment that I've done in any other investment vehicle. Yeah.
yeah. Well, when we got it reappraised, and it's kind of shocked me even a little bit. When we got it appraised the first time to purchase it, it was appraised at 2.2 with an as complete of
Mhm.
4.2. When I got it appraised, it was about 6 months ago, it appraised for 5.1 as is, meaning like even with like 15 apartments or 18 apartments left to renovate still. And it appraised for a 6.2 as complete. So our as complete shifted $2.1 million over what we expected. So it's been amazing. Real estate is really such a powerful and forced appreciation. The fact that we
Mhm.
forced that, and raise that value of that building by increasing our rents and by doing the renovations
Yeah.
has been, and also decreasing
Mhm.
our expenses has
Rick,
been
just
amazing.
before we lose you again, and before we leave, why is it that you like investing in real estate versus any other vehicle for investment?
That's a good question. It's an important question because I've had my money in traditional IRAs since the early 90s.
Mhm.
And at the time, being a little bit older, it was awesome, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, put your money in traditional IRAs. And then you had the .com market just exploding and everybody was making all kinds of money. And then that bubble imploded, right? And we've really never been back
Right.
from that bubble. Not really. Traditional IRAs to me are great. But they will go up and they've been going more down than up. To me, the return on investment for syndication is way greater than what I've seen through traditional IRAs. I'm not saying to put it all in there, but if somebody is really not seeing any movement in their traditional IRA, I would definitely be looking at the self-directed
Mhm.
for that purpose. Now, like my money goes back to my IRA. So that's still going to be taxed once I take it out later.
Mhm.
But I would rather see that money grow the way it's growing and at the same time have equity in something versus me sending my money out to the stock market where I don't even know any of these people. I
Yeah.
have no idea where this money's going. I just get people telling me, yeah, man, it's going to be great next year. And that seems to be like every year it's going to be great next year. That's my reasoning for doing it. I wanted to see something more tangible and more. I want to be able to talk to the button pusher. And
Mhm.
Jason's the button pusher, so I can talk to him. I know what's going on with that business. He does a great job too of giving quarterly reports, and I'm not sure if everybody does that, but he does a phenomenal job. And I know I read them because he gives me the okay, like thanks for reading it. Oh, hey, good job. Thanks for reading it. And he breaks it down. He breaks down projects,
Mhm.
basically it's a like a newspaper. It's like a news. This is the news of this department, and then you get your quarterly reports on the
Mhm.
financials. Everything is transparent. Everything's on there. I know where all the money went. I know how it got divvied up. I don't know that with the stock market.
True.
With a traditional IRA, I have no idea. I'm investing in people that I don't even know who these people are.
Mhm.
And ladies, for your listeners, there's also major, I mean, really there's tax benefits, there's appreciation, and
Yep.
there's cash flow, right? So you show me a stock, I mean, stocks pay dividends, right? But stocks that give you a monthly or a quarterly dividend, mailbox money,
Mhm.
every quarter of, you know, double digit percentages, like I don't think they exist. And then on top of it, you're getting tax benefits from this. We did a cost segregation study, which is probably something you guys are going to talk
Yep.
about on one of your shows. But what that does is allows us to pull in all that depreciation and front load it on our
Mhm.
taxes. So now when you do your taxes, you can offset that income that you have on your taxes. So it shows a reduced
Mhm.
amount of income. our apartment complex, both years showed a loss on paper, according to the IRS, according to what depreciation they allowed us to use. But we didn't lose money. I mean, we cash flowed every quarter, so a couple of investors actually emailed me and said, hey, I thought it shows we lost money on the taxes, but I thought, we got distribution checks every quarter. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is why
Yep.
you own real estate. This major tax benefits. So appreciation and tax. And I had to report to the IRA that Rick owns what the value of our complex or what the value of his investment was. And that value
Wow.
has doubled because we've increased the value of our building based on that appraisal and based on what we're getting for rent. So, yeah, it's like kind of like what Jake and Gino talk about. There's
Mhm.
3 pillars to that real estate, to being a passive investor. And those are the 3.
Well,
If I can add real quick too, just to
Mhm.
add on that when Jason's referring to people are able to use these K-1 tax forms, these are for people that have used their cash. That's after tax dollars. Like for me, my money's still before tax dollars. So
Mhm.
my money still,
Right.
my money I can't write that off. That goes back into an IRA. So just
Right.
be clear of that it's not, you can't take IRA money and write that off.
Mhm.
You can only take it if it's been after tax money.
yeah, but then you can continue to grow it because now it becomes a bigger bag of money.
Yeah.
And then you just take it on to the next deal. And then by the time,
Yeah.
by the time you turn 62, it is right that you can take it out, then you're good. You have
That's
a
right.
big bag to take
Right.
with you to the sunset. Well,
Yeah.
this was very educational.
Yep.
It was very brilliant. I love how you guys interact. That was fantastic.
Yes, definitely. And thank you again for coming to our show. And I'm sure there would be listeners who have questions for
Yes.
both of you. We might do a follow-up.
Phone numbers again, emails, and websites, please.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. 3nailscapital.com. That's the number 3 nails, NAILSCAPATIL.com. I had to read that because I knew that if I spelled it without looking at it, I would
That's okay.
totally butcher it. And then just 734-548-4091 is my number. And Rick, go
I'm
ahead.
going to leave it up to Jason's hand on that stuff so he can respond to that. Because I'm an investor. But the one thing I want to also add too is that if you're going to invest, I would read a little bit too. I want to make sure
Mhm.
people understand. I would understand it. Jason has given the syndication book he's referring to. I read that.
Okay.
I've read some of the other stuff that he's given me. Real Estate Raw. I'm on my 3rd time reading that. And
Good
that's a really
job.
great book because it's very short and it's to the point.
Yep.
It's got, was it Bill Ham, correct, Jason?
Bill Ham.
Bill Ham, amazing job on just
Yep.
cutting through all the baloney. And it is
My
like
coach.
right to the point. And that's how I am. I'm kind of a direct guy. Let me know the numbers. I can understand the math. And, but I'll let everybody go to Jason. He can, if they have any follow.
Sounds good.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you, everybody, and thank you
Yes.
for listening. Stay on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.